Hello, happy crafters. This is a short version of the full-length in-depth tutorial you can find linked in the video description below. So if you'd like to go deeper down the rabbit hole, I'll see you over there. I use 5mm EVA foam, barge cement, markers or pens to draw on the foam. I also have like a utility knife, and all the different tools materials will be listed down in the video description for y'all. I use barge cement on all edges and pieces that are going to be joined together on the helmet as well as the D-ring strap. I assembled a foam dome helmet that I had purchased a pattern for on Etsy, and then drew and cut away to get the shape that I wanted for how I wanted this to sit on my forehead and kind of shape around my ears, but still have enough contact and coverage that it was going to be nice and stable. One of the design elements to consider whenever you're making your own dragon or creature headdress like this is its position over the forehead. I like wearing mine pretty low down, just because oftentimes I'll like wear a veil underneath it so that I just look like a dragon and wearing a shroud, which I think is fun and cool. But I still wouldn't consider it a mask because it's not like over and around my eyes. But some folks prefer the dragon or the creature to be set a little farther back on the forehead. So it's entirely up to your personal preference and design preference. So much of the struggle of making wearable art is balancing what you want to sculpt with what you're willing to wear. The next step is I use hot glue to attach the Crazy Bones ram skull to the foam helmet. I don't trust the hot glue to hold up on its own though, so I go through and do a sculpt layer over all hot glue that is visible, and this is going to make sure that we have good adhesion. As a side note, specifically with, well, actually this would apply whether you're using paper mache or air dry clay or the freeform air. I like to sculpt a lot of the finer details with polymer clay. That way I can, really fine tune it and sculpt it and make sure it's perfect. And then I just bake it. And then I take that finished piece and I'll put that in, just like squish into the freeform air. And so for, whereas I wouldn't want to do an entire dragon head out of polymer clay because that'd be very expensive and heavy. I also don't want to make the entire head just out of freeform air. I also use a lot of resin cast materials. That way we can do really great glow in the dark that has like a translucency or opalescent effect to it. Also, any found objects or crystals, I like to kind of lay out the dragon head design that I have in mind. Whereas a lot of the times I don't have something in mind. I just, follow my intuition and just have fun and, mix and match and just kind of play with whatever I have on hand. So I'll just put it all out on like a 6-foot table that we've set up in the middle of the craft room and just design and have fun. And then I'll try to have everything baked or sealed or otherwise prepped for use in the project. Because once I start sculpting, I like smooth sailing. I don't want to have to change gears, and especially because whenever I use the freeform air, I'm gloved up. I've got my work surface like papered off so it doesn't get on everything. And it's like, I don't want to have to take all that down so I can sculpt something, in polymer clay or do a mold in a resin cast. It's like, nope, I want to stay on track once we get there. So just as a recap, my first layer of sculpting is to make a good connection layer between the horns, the head, the skull, the cap, anything that was attached with hot glue. I want to make sure that's been reinforced with the freeform air. We'll have more in-depth demonstrations of these different techniques that I'm talking about in future tutorials and live streams. So if you're interested in, keeping up with that, and I don't know, I really like it whenever we hang out and sculpt together, and y'all have so many great ideas, and it's just fun to get to share all of the difficulties, and whenever there's a victory, it's wonderful to share that as well. So you can find that here on this channel, Back to Earth Creations, as well as our impromptu live streaming channel, Craft Along with Vaughn. And those are linked down below as well. So the next step is to sculpt until you are happy. I usually will do layers of detail. So we'll go through and I'll do that base layer that's just the connections covering all the hot glue. The next layer I would go in, and usually I'm setting features like the hand painted dragon eyes, like the resin cast horns that I often will do. I enjoy doing down like the nasal ridge, or any quartz crystals that I'd like to add, or modifications to the snout. All of these things I put in kind of a layer, and I make sure to do different textures and stuff, but we're getting a little too fine into the nitty-gritty. If you want another deep dive, be sure to subscribe, because we have a lot more deep dives coming into these exact topics. Whenever you are finished sculpting, with the freeform air at least, that's what I'm going to be talking about specifically here. It takes acrylic paint very well. I do use a variety of techniques, primarily hand painting or airbrushing the base colors on. And then I'll go through, once that you gotta let it completely dry. I get so impatient because I have to wait for the paint to dry, but otherwise you're kind of working against yourself, but it can get some cool effects too. So, but in general, I have to practice being patient between layers. So, but yeah, primarily hand painting or airbrushing the base colors on. And when I've let that dry, I add washes for antiquing or dry brushing for highlights. And usually I'll go through and do a final touch layer where I add any fine details or touch-ups. That'll be like that last layer I usually do at the very end, once we've got the whole head assembled and basically it's ready to go. I'll do the final touch-ups, and then I'll seal it with Mod Podge or polyacrylic for varnish, and I hand paint those on. Though airbrushing, depending on the medium that you're using, an airbrush sealer, I make sure to test them first, because sometimes they'll make polymer clay sticky if it's like an aerosol. So be sure to test your stuff, because you don't want to find out on the finished piece, So prior to that finished touch-up paint and sealing layer, but after we've basically finished painting, I'll cover the cap and add the wig strap, which is adjustable, which I love that, but it's so nice. I like the inch wide wig straps. Those are much wider than that, and it starts to put too much pressure on my head, and much narrower than that, and I don't feel like it gives me as much stability. So that's where I found my happy place. But the more you experiment, the more you'll find the things that work for you. To cover the cap, I like to use a variety of materials, but normally I use a variety of materials and techniques. So it's all about just making it look good at this point, because the structural part was already taken care of. I like to use faux fur. I like to use feathers. I like to use silk floral, fabric, hand punched scales. I like to cut out or use scissors, or use like a leather like end strap punch to make and you can shape them with a heat gun and stuff. Like you can do all sorts of different things, y'all. If I've added any spikes down the back, I hot glue them into the position before sculpting them down, but I want to maintain mobility so that the helmet is still flexible enough to take on and off. The finishing touches would be to hand sew the adjustable elastic strap and put any additional foam inserts, like bicycle helmet foam, into the helmet to make it comfortable. Because we're wearing it on our heads, we want to make sure that they're comfortable. And so keeping it lightweight, keeping it well balanced, and keeping it well padded with, like, if you can have it ventilate well too, by having, again, the support padding, just anything to extend the comfort of wear. Every material has its pros and cons. If you don't want to use the freeform air dry clay is a good alternative, but I would recommend to not do what I do and, don't just glob it on there, which I'm very guilty of that. You'll want to do thin, even layers so that you won't get as much cracking perhaps. But I've never had any real success with air dry clay, but I'm also impatient and don't follow instructions. So hopefully you'll have a better time with it. But also you could totally do like paper mache or, whatever material you want to use. Each one's going to have its pros and cons. To me, the pros of the freeform air are that it can be sanded and painted and, machined. Like anything that I want to do, I've been able to do with the freeform air. Its cons are that it is a chemical, so you have to wear gloves, and it can be a bit more expensive, especially if you're upfront to get the gallon kit, but you can do a lot of sculpting with a gallon kit. And again, I'll have all of these things linked down in the video description below. I have longer hair, and I like to put it into 2 braids and then pull my hair through that section above the strap below the curve of the cap, and I find that helps to stabilize it. You can wear your dragon with a completed costume or go with one of my favorites, the veil, which it makes me feel like a Nazgul all draped in dark see-through fabric, so it's, I don't know, a lot of fun. But I have to say, my favorite is just the cape, where it just drapes and it's all dramatic and you can, so much fun. So that is how to make the base of a dragon or creature headdress or crown or helmet or hat, or again, I don't know what to call them. Let me know what you think we should call them down in the comments, but that's how to make the base to one. Again, if you're interested in more deep dives into the different aspects of these sculptures, or to just see the live streams and get to see them be sculpted in real time, check out those links down below and feel free to subscribe to our channels. And yeah, good luck to you guys so much. If you have any questions, please leave a question down below, in the comment area, and I'll do my best to get back to you. And if I don't know the answer to your question, we have so many talented and creative artisans and artists here in our YouTube community, so I'm sure that one of them might be able to help you out too. So y'all always make me so proud with how kind and helpful you are to each other. So thank you guys for being you and for being here, and I will see you in our next tutorial. So until then, happy crafting. Mwah. Bye.